This session is on records management system, which is part of Newgen's larger enterprise content management system called OmniDocs. OmniDocs manages the end-to-end lifecycle of content. Content could be of any format. They could be documents or records, they could be images, they could be media files like audio, video files. This content can be captured from various engagement channels like web portals, like physical scanning stations or fax machines, from social media, from devices like mobile phones, tablets, and desktops, from emails, from Microsoft Office 365, from third-party business applications like popular CRM and ERPs like SAP, Oracle, and Salesforce, to name a few. This content can be captured from the system in case there's a physical document, there's provision, there's a scanning software with which the document can be digitized. There's an optical character recognition engine with which data can be extracted and associated with that content. And finally, this content and other digital documents can be stored within Newgen's enterprise content management system. This content is stored and managed within a hierarchy of folder and subfolder structures. It also facilitates collaboration among peers. There's also provision for linear maker checker workflows, such as accept reject workflows. And coming to the archival stage, this is where the records management system has its significance. Record is an official document or data entry that is preserved as evidence of an organization's activities, transactions, or decisions. Records typically include documents such as contracts, emails, reports, forms, and other important data that needs to be retained for legal, regulatory, or operational reasons. And for infrequently used files or folders, there's provision to push them to low-cost storage devices like Amazon's S3 Glacier. And finally, this content can be extended to web portals, to productivity applications, or communication services. Newgen's content management system can be deployed both on cloud and on premises. There's also hybrid deployment modes available. Newgen's content management system has been recognized as a leader in the latest content platform wave released by Forrester in 2023. Newgen is also present in Gartner's Magic Quadrant since its inception. G2 has also recognized Newgen's enterprise content management system as a leader in their G2 grid. Newgen's records management system, which is OmniDocs, manages the end-to-end lifecycle of a record. And this lifecycle is similar to the usual document lifecycle or a content lifecycle where the content would be captured, processed, and delivered. The major difference is in the processing and managing stage. The RMS provides multiple records management related workflows within the system, and multiple rules and policies can also be configured and created, such as retention rules, storage rules, disposition rules, and can be associated with those records. Newgen has multiple certifications and compliances under its belt. One is US Department of Defense. There are other regional certifications and compliances like NRAA, National Archives of Singapore, Public Records Office of Victoria. Newgen adheres to several ISO compliances. Other certifications and compliance include HIPAA and PCI DSS. Newgen has implemented RMS for a large organization in the GCC. It's a government organization comprising of 22 ministries, where 15,000 plus end users are leveraging the system. There are 300 plus unique compliances that Newgen adheres to, and the solution is deployed on government cloud. And this implementation was also localized for Arabic language. The RMS is available in both English and Arabic for this implementation. There's another implementation in a state in the US where criminal records are being managed and also made available to other employees within other departments. Now let's move to a demo of Newgen's records management system. Here, as soon as a user logs in this case Alex would be greeted to a dashboard comprising of multiple widgets. And these widgets are completely configurable and A mixed match of these widgets can be used to build their own dashboard, which is possible in Newgen's admin module. The user may have a minimum of 3 widgets to a maximum of 6 widgets. Here, the first widget is for profile, where basic details of Alex is mentioned. Alex can also mark folders, subfolders, and records as favorites, which can be viewed from this widget and can also be directly accessed from here. There's a recently accessed widget as well. All the recently accessed files and subfolders would be populated here and again can be directly accessed from the widget itself. There's a widget for alarms and reminders based on certain actions like deleting a record or transferring a record. These alarms and reminders can be triggered. There's also a widget for vitals management. Any record that is deemed as vital or important to an organization can be managed separately, and those documents would be populated here in this widget. There's also a My Search widget where all the recent searches that was conducted by Alex would be visible. There are other widgets also available. For example, here is a different dashboard for another user. Here there is a My Task widget, there is a pending disposition widget. Likewise, these desktops can be personalized for that particular user. Here is another view. To the left, there is this navigation pane comprising of multiple buttons. We've already seen the dashboard. My Task displays the items and requests that are sent and received for approval. Here there are 2 tabs, one is items and one is request. Under items, it displays a list of items that came for Alex's approval. Alex can either approve these items or reject them. Now coming to My Items, this contains a list of all the items for which Alex is a borrower. It allows him to generate a transfer note or return the item. And lastly, Item Transferred displays a list of transferred items by Alex. An item transfer takes place due to multiple reasons. It could be returning a requested item or transferring the item to a user who has requested it. Now coming to the Request tab. Here there are 2 options. One is incoming request and the other is outgoing request. Incoming request contains a list of all the requests raised by Alex. Alex can approve or reject these requests from here. And accepting can be done in the form of generating a transfer note. Now coming to outgoing requests. These requests displays the list of requests that Alex has raised to borrow the items. And the following statuses might appear against the outgoing request. Pending meaning an assigned user has not worked on the requested item. Granted meaning an assigned user has granted the request. Rejected meaning the item was rejected. Dispatched means a transfer note was generated after receiving that item. Moving to the next button, which is File Plan. File Plan is basically the hierarchy of folder and subfolder structures where these documents or records would be stored and managed. And at the very top of this hierarchy, which is a file plan, there is class, followed by subclasses, followed by file part, and finally the record. Here, you may see that records and even physical trails of physical records, rather digital trails of physical records is also present here. To the very right, there is file properties. And these properties list all the basic details of the file vendor contracts and agreements. For instance, there is file name, there is file numbering, file ID, file identifier, the owner who has created the file, created date, modified date, category, the location where this file resides. In this case, it's San Francisco. And in case it's a physical file, the box can also be mentioned. And any file or record can be marked as vital, which can be managed separately. The disposition authority, backup media, the number of records within the file, the numbering rule associated with the file, the borrow period of all the records within that file, and rules such as cutoff rule, retention rule, storage rule, and other details like file rights in data class would be visible under file properties. Now let's see how a document can be added here. Simply click browse. Let's upload a vendor agreement. There's also provision to add additional details in the form of metadata. Here, let's quickly fill up the mandatory details. And this is done. There's also provision to add metadata. Here, the data class company contract was created under which there are several fields. This can be done within the admin module where multiple data classes can be created and to be associated to records or files. And it can also be leveraged for searches. Let's specify the vendor name and vendor type. So the sign date. Once all the details are entered, simply click upload. Once you see success, the user may simply close it and the document would be uploaded here successfully. The same thing can be done for physical records. A paper profile can be created to manage the physical records residing in some warehouse within a box or within physical files. Now, there are several features available to the user's disposal. Here are some of them. Here we can check the audit log, where every action performed on this record would be logged. Here, since we've just created the record, there's only one line item. Let's check for another document. Here's the audit log for another document where all these details have been captured. There's also robust rights that can be managed here. Here, as you may see, these rights can be managed for groups, users, and roles. Let's specify access rights for, let's say, Jane. We can mark what Jane can do with the documents and simply click OK. It's as easy as that to manage rights for documents and records and files and folders. This provision to set alarms and reminders from here. Here, let's say when Alex deletes a record, it should notify everyone. So that's how alarms can be configured based on certain actions that a user would perform. Based on rights that was granted to the user may delete the record, move the record, copy the record. There's another interesting functionality called suspend. This is also called legal hold. Let's say there is a lawsuit going on where this document needs to be referred. This document can be suspended. And during the suspended period, no rules and policies would apply to it for the entire litigation period. Once the litigation is over, the user may simply come in and release a record. Let's see how a record can be requested. A description may be added. Simply click generate request. And here a slip would be generated for reference. This is how records can be requested. There is provision to link records with supporting documents. Here, the specific records can be selected from these files. So the purpose of this is that if another additional or supporting documents need to be referred, it can be directly accessed from the document itself rather than having to search for those documents individually. Other than that, there is provision to download the record, to convert documents into records. There's provision to check out a document, which can be edited and checked back in. The user may version manage the document. The user may mail the document directly from here in the form of attachment or as a link to external and internal parties. And finally, there is provision for different renditions to supersede the relationship. These are some of the functionalities available at the user's disposal. Now let's see how the document viewer looks like. As soon as the document is clicked, let's open the one that was recently uploaded. As soon as the document is clicked, the user would see a three-pane split view. To the very right, there are documents or records that are residing within the vendor contracts and agreements folder. Right in the middle, there is a viewer with several tools and features available. And at the very right, there are record properties that can be viewed. Recently entered metadata is also visible here. The user may also contract or expand these panes, including the viewer. Within the viewer, there are multiple functionalities such as manually zooming in and zooming out. The record can be fit to page, can be rotated, printed. The brightness of this document can be adjusted. And there are several annotation capabilities, such as adding an arrow. Sensitive data can be redacted or masked. There is provision to highlight important sections or paragraphs within a document. There's also provision to freehand draw. The user may add or rather insert text. There's also provision to add sticky note. Other annotation capabilities include adding hyperlinks to these documents, adding stamps and watermarks. And these annotations, they are done on a superficial layer above the document so that the original document does not get hampered. This concludes the functionalities within the viewer. Now let's proceed to the point of content discovery, which is basically searching the content. There's a search bar at the very top with which content, record, files, and folders can be searched based on the name of that file or record, based on the content of the record themselves, and also if any metadata is associated, like in this case, the search can be performed based on those metadata as well. Here's another interesting search mechanism where custom searches can be configured leveraging data classes. Okay, let's look for a document, a vendor document with the vendor name as vendor. All these documents would pop up. If you notice here, it has pulled up various vendor types, but the vendor name is all the same. Let's take a step back and let's specify a vendor type. Now, based on the vendor type, that specific or those specific documents would be pulled up. Vital management is where any record or folder deemed as vital would be managed. Now, coming to the processing tab. Here, there are several functionalities or options available. Storage processing tab contains a list of items that are ready for storage processing as defined in the storage rule. Here, a source location can be mentioned. And all the records related to that source location would be populated here. The administrator defines a storage rule using the RMS admin module, which we will be getting to in a bit. It enables the movement of files, file parts, or records from one location to the other. The transfer request is sent to the administrator of the location where file parts, and records are stored. Now moving to destruction processing. This contains a list of items that are ready for disposal. It may be in form of consignments, and even retained items would be displayed here. Now coming to transfer processing. Transfer processing is which contains a list of items that are ready to get transferred to the next phase. The file parts, and records are listed in the transfer processing tab as per the defined retention rule. Once an item is listed in the transfer processing tab, Alex would receive an alert to transfer the item to the next phase. And there's also provision to purge metadata and images. This basically contains a list of records to be deleted based on the retention rule applicable on a particular record. Now let's move on to see how the admin module functions and all the features that are available within the admin module. This admin module is common for records management system and content management system as a whole. There's a separate one for records management system where there are several features available. The most important ones are location settings and rules and policies, which we would glance over. Provision for security settings, personalizing system reports, and system configuration. Let's look at location management. This is a process of defining and organizing physical and digital storage locations for records within an RMS. And locations are classified into three types. Here it's active in-house, which is used for storing frequently accessed items. There's an inactive in-house, which is used for storing infrequently accessed items. And there is external storage used for permanent transfer of records to an external authority. Multiple sublocations can be added, and within those sublocations, boxes to signify physical storage can also be added. Now, the next feature is to add rules and policies. These are some of the rules and policies that can be configured. Let's see how a file plan numbering rule can be added. This is a method for assigning unique numbers to files based on a classification system. For example, in a legal department's files may be numbered as Law 2024-001, where law indicates the department, 2024 being the year, and 001 being the sequence. Let's see how that looks like. The sequencing can be done for various folders, subfolders, and even for records. Coming to the next rule, which is transfer numbering rule. This is a rule for assigning unique numbers to records during transfers between locations or custodians. For example, when records are moved from active storage to an offsite archive, a transfer number like TR that indicates transfer, followed by perhaps the year, which is 2024, and any sequence like 01, 02, 03 can be assigned in a similar fashion as shown earlier. Next is the cutoff rule. This is a policy that determines when records are considered closed and move from active status. Cutoff refers to closing a file or file part based on certain conditions, while rollover involves creating a new file part. For example, financial records might be cut off at the end of the fiscal year and then transferred to inactive storage. Here, the aggregation level can be mentioned. and time-based and event-based conditions can be added. Next is retention rule. These are guidelines that dictate how long records must be retained before disposal or archiving. For example, tax records may be retained for 7 years to comply with regulatory requirements before secure destruction. Here again, time-based and event-based conditions can be added, and specific disposition action that needs to be done. Here in this case is destroy. The next important rule is storage rule. This is the rule that defines how records are moved between locations. Storage rules may cover interim transfer, which means movement within the organization, such as from one department storage to another, or accession, meaning permanent transfer to an external entity, such as an archival authority. One example would be transferring old human resources files to an external archival service. And similar to the other rules, the rules and conditions can be added. Here, the number of months or years is suggested. Now we have covered some of the most important aspects of record management system within the admin module. Now we shall be concluding this session. Thank you all for joining in. Have a great day.